when you first meet with your mentor, okay, you want to establish expectations and see where are they at in this process, and so what do I need to be doing with them at this time? And so there's a worksheet on that page. We're not going to use it right now. I just want to kind of illustrate it for you for a minute. But I encourage you, on a first-time meeting for your mentor, this may be a great worksheet for you to take with to just kind of remind you of a few questions you might want to be asking, okay, as you go through. Of kind of thinking ahead of time, what are my expectations for this position? What do I think I'm going to be doing? What do they think I'm supposed to be doing, or what do they want out of the relationship? And this will be kind of asking questions, seeing where are they at? Kind of what's their prior teaching experience? What do they need from me? And then establish a shared set of goals and expectations for the relationship, right? Come to a compromise of kind of where are we at, okay? Have a communication plan. Am I emailing you to check in regularly, or do you just want to email me when you need a meeting? You know, how are we getting in touch with each other? How often do you expect me to check in? Okay? And as they grow, you'll need to evaluate this and see, you know, how is this changing over time? If I'm a consultant, it may be I want to make sure I check in before I do a video observation or mid-quarter feedback, see where are they at, do they have specific concerns, or anybody who's running a mid-quarter feedback, okay? Then I'll get that feedback, meet with them. Then I may decide, or we may decide together, it'd be really nice if you check in with me a little later to see how this went, see how some changes went, so I could, if something goes wrong, we can tweak it. So find out kind of what's the plan of action. So within this whole process, the key thing that's come up a number of times is being an effective listener, right? We can't know where our TA is at unless we listen to them and really hear what's going on. So we put together a small skit that we would like to share with you to kind of demonstrate what a consultation scenario may or may not, or should not look like, okay? So we have our TA. I will introduce our TA, Tom. He's quite fabulous and has come to join us today. And Tom needs a consultation with his mentor. So I will let us begin.
Hi, Marcel, do you have a moment?
Sure,
great.
Tom. What?
My students come into class complaining constantly about the instructor. They don't want to pay attention because they are so focused on criticizing something that went on in the lecture. Is this a good time? I can come back. No?
That's okay, Tom. That's okay.
It's very difficult for me to keep them on task. And I feel like this is creating a bad learning environment for them. And I have to say, it is getting to the point where it's difficult for me to interact with them. So I was wondering if you had...
So I don't know. So the students are upset at you. I'm not sure. What did you do to get them that way? Okay,
I'll come back.
Got to run, Tom.
Okay, so I'm going to call time on this scenario here. What's going well? What's going not so well in this scenario?
For what's going well, there are a few things. Is that the TA actually feels comfortable talking to the mentor and is bringing up these issues to him.
Great. Okay, so they must have had a comfortable enough relationship that the TA could approach him in the first place, which is excellent. You know, if the TA is ready to come up to you, that's great. Any other issues? You look like you have one.
Checking his phone.
He's obviously not physically engaged with this thing. It doesn't. Maybe he just doesn't have the time right now. Okay, and if that happens, and it will, maybe it's fair to say, can we reschedule this for, you know, because for tomorrow? I'd love to talk to you, but now is not the time. Because it's almost worse to sit there and not pay attention to what's going on. What else did you notice about when Marcelo finally did respond?
He had obviously not been listening, right? So the issue is completely different, and then he also blamed him.
A couple issues there, okay? since he wasn't listening, he totally misunderstood the problem and then blamed the TA for it right away, which is going to put them in defensive mode of, it's not my fault. So this kind of accusatory nature is not going to help facilitate a better conversation. All right, let's have a new mentor give it a shot.
Tom, how's it going?
It's been better. Yeah.
So, from what I understand, when you were talking to me before, you've got a pretty significant challenge in this class.
Yeah.
And things are not going well with the students and the instructor, and it's coming back into section and impacting what's going on for you.
Exactly. And I have to say, I kind of agree with some of the students' comments. There are things that I think could have been presented differently in the lecture. I don't think the explanations the instructor provides are always as clear as they should be.
Right, okay. Now that's going to, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that it happened to you now. It happens enough. Sooner or later it's going to impact. Happened to me, and let me tell you what I did. So first of all, the students came into section. I was prepared with an agenda. They were all riled up because things were not clear in class. Yeah, and they wanted to talk, so away we went. I said, we're going to just diffuse this right now.
Well, see,
just opened it right up and let them talk, and they talked, and I totally blew my session agenda for that day.
Well, see, that's exactly...
Yeah, well, I hear you, but you need to know a couple of things about this situation because it's going to happen again. In fact, it sounds like it's escalating. So what really bombed for me...
Turn to me.
Okay, so good and bad, what happened in this step? What did...
I think it was a little overkill from wanting to share, obviously, personal experience instead of contributing to the conversation.
So yeah, a little personal small story might be effective sometimes, but if the focus entirely shifts to you now, of kind of, man, here's what's going on in my head, you've lost track of what's his challenge.
Sounds like Robin gives the same shield to every TA right, like it wasn't sort of fine-tuned for Tom at all.
Right, she wasn't kind of specifically addressing his needs at the moment. It just kind of was more what's important to her. And she is not like that at all, but she had a lot of trouble keeping the straight face for this one.
Hey, you can save that one.
Oh, Marcelo's wonderful too, you're right. I'm sorry, I will make it up to you. Anything else going on there?
She caught herself up quickly, so I remember last time you were having trouble.
Yeah, so she did empathize with the problem and kind of restated it for him and said, okay, here's what I heard is going on. And yeah, that is a challenging problem. So instead of accusing him of doing something wrong, she's empathizing with the issue and kind of letting him know, yeah, I can hear why that would be frustrating to you. Let's talk about it a little more. Let's hear more. Okay. All right, well, let's give a new mentor a chance now to make this right.
So, Tom, that does sound really tough. So, have you talked with the other TAs about this problem?
That's a great idea. We've talked a little bit among ourselves about this, we other TAs, but nobody's really faced this particular situation before, so nobody's really clear what to do.
Okay, well, let's just brainstorm together. Are there any other persons in the department that you could talk to, or?
I guess I could go to the instructor and broach this with him. The thing is, though, this professor is not the easiest person to talk to, can be kind of intimidating. I don't know, maybe I could just frame it in terms of passing along the students' comments to the professor.
I wouldn't do that. I mean, if it's scary instructor, I would just keep it secret.
Okay, well, let's take a pause there. So, what are some things Monica is doing well? Yeah?
She didn't just give him a direct answer. She kind of turned it around and asked him what he thought first. And I liked how she said, let's brainstorm together. I thought that was a pretty good thing to do. We can work it out between them.
Yeah, open it up to a conversation. So it's not just you, here's what I did, here's what you need to do, but well, let's talk about this together. What else? Good or bad? What's going on here?
She could have put more like personal opinion or personal expertise because she's the mentor, but she was feeling sort of at the same like it's another TA level.
So it's this fine line of kind of balancing, where do I put in a little bit of advice And how do I keep them engaged in coming up with a solution, right? Because it will definitely, what we see in the different consultations that happen is if the TA is part of coming up with that solution, they're much more likely to implement it, right? But at the same time, you probably do have some good advice of what's happening. And maybe that comes kind of as you're brainstorming together, right? Because you kind of opened the floor, now let's brainstorm. And you can kind of popcorn ideas around.
She was almost there with connecting him with other resources, just almost. It's like, are there other people you can talk to? And then once the issue came up with, this is a difficult conversation, there are other places you can go to learn about how to start difficult conversations.
Yeah. There's an excellent, almost there. It was excellent to kind of think about, well, what other resources can we talk about? Okay. What went wrong? No, almost there.
I almost think it was a little bit of cheating, like just keep saying like, oh, we'll talk to this person and talk to that person. I mean, I don't think there was anything particularly, I mean, maybe we just didn't, maybe you buzzed it too quickly, but.
We weren't there yet.
We weren't there, I mean, I didn't see anything that even, there wasn't much of a solution there just yet. There wasn't anything particularly constructive about how he can address the issue other than, oh, well, talk to other people. I'm not sure that that's.
Well, you're right. I didn't let her get there yet. We were kind of, that's probably where we'd head. And that's a great point to make. That's probably exactly where we head. And part of the solution may be, are there other people in the department to talk to? Because if he's not comfortable talking to one person, is there another person that knows this professor better? Because sometimes the solution may be just to talk to somebody else who knows the situation. Because if you're not in that department, and as a consultant, this will happen a lot, right? If you're a TA mentor within the department, you may actually know the professor and be able to have some specific advice about that professor. But if you're a consultant in the communication department and you're now consulting for someone in the engineering department, you may have no idea who this guy is. So you don't know whether it's a good or bad idea to talk to him, or whether there's another person in the department that makes a better route. So helping them kind of think about where do they fit in that role can be very helpful. Did I?
Oh, I was just going to say, she, I mean, obviously dissuaded him from talking to the professor before really establishing whether he ever tried or why he was afraid, or whether that was something to encourage or discourage.
Exactly. I think the great kind of last piece on this is that he brought up a solution, and as a mentor, you want to encourage, it may not be you giving the advice. And this is the hardest thing to do as a mentor, right, is to kind of hold back sometimes. Because you may have some solutions, but if he has one too, you want to hear it and help him think about whether this is a good idea or not. So at this point, she doesn't know anything about this professor, perhaps. And so just kind of slamming down and saying, no way, bad idea. Ask more. Probe deeper, okay? Remember, effective listening, we want to ask questions and help them decide if that's the right route to go. Awesome. Well, let's give our final mentor a shot.
The perfect solution.
Oh, okay, here it comes.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Okay.
Yeah?
Hanging on.
So last time you said you had this issue and the professor you didn't quite trust him.
Yeah.
We didn't have a chance to actually talk about what it was that keeps you from talking with him.
Well, I don't know. There's just a bit of a communication difficulty. We have weekly TA meetings and everything, and it doesn't seem like suggestions are received very well.
Okay, that's kind of tough. Do you think, and you also said you were not sure if your colleagues had the same issue, but do you think this professor would be open to hearing suggestions if it came from the whole team?
Possibly, and if it were phrased in a way that these are students' concerns we are passing along, and it's not quite so confrontational. I've also been thinking perhaps I could talk to our department's TA training director.
Okay.
Because I've spoken to her before, she might have some really good ideas. But what I just realized is I think it'd be most helpful for me to track down other grad students in our department who have been a TA for this particular professor and just find out what their experience has been. If maybe it's unique to my situation, maybe this has come up before.
That sounds like great ideas. I mean, they might give you some feedback on what happened before in other classes and what they did. But I mean, you could also try to bring that back then to your TAs, you know, to your colleagues, and see if there's similar perceptions and what they could do. Do you think, I mean, you could find out if they have the same issues or how they go about it, or even come up with a kind of problem-solving approach?
I think that if we gather together and put our heads together looking at this issue, I think just sharing the experiences would be helpful for everybody, just finding out what people have been through as TAs. I think it might just defuse some of the tension that we've been experiencing in this situation.
Right, and you said that actually your professor might be open if you guys could present it as a student issue or how students learn. So maybe coming up with really real good strategies that would help the students learn better might also play out with the professor.
Working through some problem solving, really step-by-step kind of things,
Right. And you mentioned TA, training director, that's certainly a place to go, and colleagues. Sounds like a great plan. So do you think do you think you'll take this as an action item for next time when we meet? Or
I feel like now I actually have some things I can do, some concrete steps I can take.
Sounds good. So we'll check in again in a while?
I would really appreciate that.
Sounds like a plan then.
That sounds great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Tom, and all our mentors. We brought in professional actors for the roles. So how did that finish up? What went well towards the end here? Yeah, Adam.
He did a good job at just building his confidence in that A, there was a solution to his problem, and B, you know, by working with other TAs, maybe that would be a good way to go forward. Just giving him confidence that it could be fixed.
Yeah, kind of reassuring him a little bit and helping him kind of pick apart. Okay, would this be a good idea? Yeah, actually it might. Okay, let's give that a shot. It's worked before. What else? Yeah.
There was a clear path forward in terms of follow-up. So it's like, okay, we will make sure, well, it wasn't like make sure to have something ready for next time, but like next time we talk, we need to make sure we talk about this again.
Yeah. So there's kind of an established expectation that, oh, I'm going to check in with you again, see how this goes. So he knows that someone's going to follow up. So if something goes wrong, he's reassured that something's going to happen. He'll still have support. But anytime you know someone's going to check in with you, it kind of makes you all the more likely to implement that action plan so you have something to tell them when you get back together. Right? Anything else you guys noticed? Yeah, Long.
I was wondering, I mean, I really liked how there was like very tangible plans and actions and recapitulated at the end. I was wondering, there was a lot of ideas around the table. At one point I was like, would it help to kind of help them prioritize these a little bit? Because it's just like a whole table full
of ideas now.
All of which are probably good, but it's like, you know, everyone has limited time and whatever, like kind of maybe helping them think through, like, maybe you should try this first, or I don't know.
I think that would be excellent. So yeah, he had kind of a wealth of ideas there, which is great. Okay, we've got some good things. But if I leave going, okay, there's all these ideas floating in my head now, what the heck do I do with all these pieces? Yeah, it can really help to prioritize. And that's something you will find in many different types of consultations, whether you just have kind of this chance meeting together, or you've got a mid-quarter evaluation you're following up from, or a video observation. There may be 50 things you think that they might be able to do, but that's just not practical to try and implement all at once, right? We need a couple concrete things that I can do, because there's only so many things you can change at once, right? So you may have to be a filter sometimes for kind of, okay, what do we want to focus on first? And so you may find, if you get some mid-quarter feedback from the TAs, you may not be passing on every piece, or you might be paraphrasing a little bit, right? And we'll talk about that more as we go. But helping them prioritize, okay, what would be the most likely thing or the easiest thing to do right now? So I'll go there first. If that doesn't work, I can try this. One or two things to help them along. And you may want to write it down, right? So you've got it in writing.